Hi there, this video will show you how to post invoices in Yardi. As you're logged into your dashboard, the first thing that you want to do is create a new payable batch. You can make up a number and then at the end you can correct it when you are finished posting all your invoices. Let's say we're going to post $15,000 in invoices in about 25 invoices. After you put in your total and your items declared, you go ahead and save. You will click on this white page to start posting your invoices. On the payee section, you want to pay attention to all your blue boxes. As you start typing the name of the vendor, it will populate for you. For example, HD Supply. It will populate, you just select it, and then you have the invoice in front of you. You put in the invoice number, always expense on the expense type. Total of the invoice will be on the bottom of the invoice. Invoice date, you take that from the invoice as well. The post month will be the month that you're entering the invoice, with the exception that if you're entering invoices after the 24th of that month, then it will be a post month for the following month. For example, if you're posting an invoice in June 24th, it's the closing period. If you're posting the invoice June 25th, 26th, or 27th, any day after the 24th, you will have to put the post month as of July, because it will not be processed until that time. On the entity column, you're going to select your property. Amount will be the detail on that invoice. So on that $400, we could have two different items. That will be listed on the invoice. Two items of $200, for example. It's got to be itemized. And let's say that this first 200 are appliances. So you will type appliances here. As soon as you type in the first few letters, it will populate the accounts for you. For appliances, since it is a capital item, you always want to use the code that starts with 6. So that's for capital items. You also want to print out your chart of codes from the public drive. That way you know where you're coding each items. Let's say this appliance is going to, oops, there's an error there. Let's say it's going to apartment 2031 and it's a refrigerator. You want to make sure you make those notes. This right here could be just turnover supplies. And so those are operational items. They're always going to start with 5. Do not use any codes that start with 4. Those accounts we don't use. We only use accounts that start with 6 or with 5. And then this will be, for example, doorknobs, or it could be actually, let's see, for turnover supplies we can put in garbage disposals. If you want to put in how many, you can put it in parentheses. Let's say you have 3 here. And then after you're done with that, you want to make sure that this amount over on the top, on the total amount, it does match with the total here on the bottom. On your notes, you want to make sure you repeat what's on your notes on this section here. So we're going to put in 2031, refrigerator. And then you can also use the copy and paste option. So I can, for example, copy this and just paste it up here. That also helps and it saves you a lot of time. Right now, if both of your totals are matching, your invoice date and your invoice number are matching what you have on hand, then you can go ahead and post this invoice. So all you do is just save. It's going to give you the message that the post month is outside of the current operating month, and that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You're going to save 1 second time, and then the page is going to go blank for you to enter the next invoice. Now let's say you are typing the payee name and you find out that it's not populating for you. What could be possibly happening is that payee it's not active on NetVendor, meaning this person is not in compliance with NetVendor. It also could be that some of the vendors are have different codes that don't start with their actual name, and I'm going to show you an example. So if we go to NetVendor, which you should have a login, and if you don't have a login to NetVendor, you will email Jenny Alstead and ask her to send you a login for NetVendor. Once you go in here, you will be able to see who is in compliance and who is not. And also you will be able to see what would be the Yardi code that you will be using for that vendor when you're entering the invoice. What you want to do is type in at least the first name of the vendor that you're not able to locate in Yardi. Let's say USA Air. You don't have to select any state or anything. You could just go ahead and search the vendor. And if you scroll down to the bottom here, you will see anything that starts with air. And here is USA Air. As you can see, the Yardi ID is NB44786. So that means that when you go to Yardi, it's going to be NB47. Let me look it up again. 447. Okay, sorry about that. 447, and then you'll be able to find the vendor right here. So a lot of them start with the NB letter, so you will be able to find them over here. If the yes is green, means they are compliant. If there is a no in red, means that they still need documentation. And if they are not compliant and NetVendor, you will not be able to process that invoice. So let's enter this one as another sample. The expense, let's say this is a $1,200 invoice from 6/29. And obviously we're going to post it in July. Then you pick your property. You got your $1,200. This is going to be an air conditioning installation. So we're going to say it's going to be a replacement. And we're going to put the unit number where the work was done, and that should be on the invoice. Replaced condensing unit. You are going to copy and paste this note on the notes on top, and then you will save. One thing that you really want to make sure is that the vendor that you are selecting, it does apply to your CDN state, because sometimes we have vendors that have the same name, but they do different kind of work because they're located in different states. So it could be a possibility that you will find two vendors with the same name. You have to make sure that you're selecting the one that is applies to your CDN state. Usually what address is listed on the invoice should match this address that you see as the payee info in Yardi. If the address doesn't match, then there's probably that is not the correct vendor. There is some nationwide vendors that we all use, for example, Wilmar and HD Supply. Those codes are always the same for everybody, and the addresses are usually out of state, so that those kind of vendors, major vendors, they might not match what's on your invoice as far as the payee info. Again, if somebody's not compliant in that vendor, you will not be able to pay that invoice, so you will have to contact the vendor and ask them to please get compliant. One of the ways that you can contact them is through their email. So you could go ahead and click on their name, and you might be able to shoot them an email, because there is an email address here always on top. As you click on it, it will take you up to open up your email, and then you can go ahead and email them right away and tell them, I have this invoice number. I am not able to pay your invoice because you're not compliant with NetVendor. Please contact NetVendor as soon as possible so we can pay your invoices. Holding up invoices are going to affect your financials, because you obviously want to process your invoices when the work is completed and paid in the same month that is completed. So it's very important that you stay on top of your vendors to make sure that they get in compliance right away. We don't supposed to use any vendors that are not in compliance with NetVendor. So if you bring in a new vendor on board, you need to make sure that they get compliant first before you can actually give them work. Once you're done posting your batch, what you want to do is make sure that your amount posted and the amount that you declared is matches. So you want to go ahead and to click on the unposted batch link here. And obviously this doesn't match. I have $1,600 in 2 invoices. You want to manually add up all your invoices that you have in your hand. And if you come up with this number and this quantity of invoices, what you want to do is edit here. And we're going to put in 1,600. And obviously here it will be 2. And then you can save. Now we have matching numbers on top. They will always have to match, and total declared numbers matching. Once you're done posting all these invoices and this batch, what you want to do is click on report. You are going to print out this page, so you're always going to right click and print this page. And it's going to go on top of all your invoices that you just processed, mailed to your accountant. I always suggest to scan them also to your computer and save them on your computer in case they get lost on the mail. I also suggest that you FedEx them instead of sending them regular mail, just to ensure that it gets to the destination. But always, be green, don't make copies, just scan them to your computer or scan them to your email, create a folder where you can name it maybe payable batches or something like that, and then you can save all your scanning items in there. You can save them also by batch number, so when you're saving them, you can mention this batch number on it, 76638 for example on this one. And that way you can locate them easier when you're trying to locate a batch that you just sent to your accounting. Sometimes also